10 foods neurologists wish you ate more often. You have probably been told that memory loss after a certain age is simply something to accept, a quiet decline you cannot influence. Neurologists are increasingly saying that is not the full picture. This video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, so please speak with your own healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet. But here is the part rarely mentioned. Researchers following older adults for years have found that certain everyday food choices were tied to a meaningfully slower rate of memory decline compared to those who ate differently, and the difference did not require anything expensive or complicated. Several of the foods on this list are almost certainly already in your kitchen right now, sitting in a drawer or a refrigerator shelf you pass by every day without a second thought. And one item on this list is so commonly misunderstood that most people quietly throw away the exact part of it that researchers believe matters most for the brain. We will get to that one near the end, and if you have eaten it your whole life, what you learn about it may genuinely change how you prepare it from now on. Number 1. Fatty fish. Salmon, sardines, and mackerel keep showing up in nutrition research for one particular reason: their high concentration of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically a compound called DHA, which stands for docosahexaenoic acid. This fatty acid is a major structural component of brain cell membranes, meaning it may literally help form part of the physical architecture of the brain. Some studies have associated higher omega-3 intake with better memory performance and a slower rate of brain volume loss in older adults, although researchers are careful to note that correlation is not the same as proof of cause and effect. Consider Margaret, a 71-year-old retired schoolteacher from Ohio. For most of her adult life, she avoided fish entirely because she disliked the smell of cooking it at home. After a routine checkup, her doctor suggested she try incorporating fatty fish into her meals twice a week, not as a treatment for anything specific, but as part of a broader conversation about long-term brain and heart health. Margaret began baking salmon with lemon and herbs, and within a few months, she said she simply felt more mentally sharp during her morning crossword puzzles. Her experience is anecdotal, of course, and cannot be used to draw broad conclusions, but it illustrates how a small dietary shift can become a sustainable habit. For those who do not enjoy fish or who follow a plant-based diet, algae-based omega-3 supplements exist as an alternative source of DHA, though it may be helpful to discuss appropriate dosing with a healthcare provider before starting any supplement. Neurologists who study this connection often point out that timing and consistency appear to matter more than any single serving. A single fish dinner is unlikely to change anything on its own, but a pattern of eating fatty fish once or twice a week, sustained across years rather than weeks, is the kind of habit that shows up repeatedly in long-term observational research. Some researchers have also looked at populations in coastal regions of Japan and parts of Scandinavia, where fish consumption has traditionally been high, and noted that these populations tend to show favorable patterns in certain measures of brain aging, although diet is only one variable among many, including genetics, physical activity, and overall healthcare access, that could explain these regional differences. It is also worth mentioning that canned varieties, such as canned salmon or canned sardines, generally retain much of the same omega-3 content as fresh fish, which makes this an accessible and affordable option for people without easy access to a fresh seafood counter. Number 2. Leafy green vegetables. Spinach, kale, and collard greens are often praised for their vitamin content, but there is a specific nutrient inside them that has captured the attention of neurologists in recent years: a compound called vitamin K, along with folate, beta-carotene, and lutein. A well-known long-term study out of Rush University followed older adults for several years and found that those who consumed at least one serving of leafy greens per day showed a rate of cognitive decline that was, on average, slower than those who rarely ate them. The researchers were careful to describe this as an association rather than a guaranteed protective effect, since diet is only one piece of a much larger picture that includes genetics, physical activity, sleep, and overall health. What makes leafy greens particularly interesting is how easily they can be added to existing meals without dramatically changing what someone already eats. A handful of spinach blended into a morning smoothie, or a side of sautéed kale with dinner, requires very little effort but may contribute, over time, to a broader pattern of nutrient intake that supports overall brain health. There is also an emotional side to this story that often goes unmentioned. Consider Ruth, a 69-year-old widow from North Carolina who began preparing a simple side salad of mixed greens every evening after her husband passed away, partly as a way to keep a small, comforting routine in her day. She has said that the habit itself, chopping vegetables, arranging them carefully on a plate, gave her a sense of structure during a difficult period of her life, separate entirely from any nutritional benefit. Her physician later mentioned, during an unrelated visit, that her consistent vegetable intake was a positive sign in her overall health picture, though he was careful to note that no single habit could be credited with any specific outcome. For anyone who finds the taste of raw leafy greens unappealing, light sautéing with a small amount of olive oil and garlic is a preparation method many nutritionists recommend, since it can improve palatability while still preserving much of the nutritional value. Number 3. Walnuts. Walnuts have an unusual claim to fame in nutrition circles. They physically resemble a small brain, complete with two hemispheres. And while that resemblance is simply a coincidence of nature, the nutritional profile of walnuts is genuinely notable. They are one of the few tree nuts containing a meaningful amount of plant-based omega-3 fatty acids, specifically alpha-linolenic acid, in addition to polyphenols and vitamin E, both of which act as antioxidants. Antioxidants matter here because the brain, despite making up only about 2% of total body weight, uses roughly 20% of the body's oxygen and energy supply. This high metabolic demand can generate oxidative stress, a process in which unstable molecules called free radicals may damage cells over time. Some researchers believe that a diet rich in antioxidant-containing foods, walnuts among them, could help the body manage this oxidative load, though this remains an active area of ongoing study rather than a settled conclusion. A small handful of walnuts, roughly a small closed fist in size, is often the portion referenced in nutrition guidance, since nuts are calorie-dense and moderation still matters. Interestingly, walnuts are not the only nut studied in this context, but they consistently appear at the top of comparison lists, specifically because of their unusually high concentration of alpha-linolenic acid relative to other tree nuts such as almonds or cashews. Some nutrition researchers describe this as one of the reasons walnuts are frequently singled out in dietary pattern studies, including several versions of the Mediterranean diet research, where a small daily serving of mixed nuts, walnuts included, was part of the overall eating pattern associated with favorable cognitive outcomes over time. A practical habit some people adopt is keeping a small container of walnuts at their workstation or in their car, replacing a less nutritious snack, such as chips or crackers during moments of hunger throughout the day. This kind of substitution, rather than simple addition, is often what nutrition professionals mean when they talk about sustainable dietary change, since it does not require significantly increasing overall calorie intake. Number 4. Berries. Blueberries, strawberries, and blackberries owe much of their deep color to a group of plant compounds called flavonoids, and among these, a specific subgroup called anthocyanins has drawn particular interest from researchers studying memory and aging. In several studies, older adults who regularly consumed berries showed measurably better performance on certain memory tasks compared to those who consumed them rarely, though again, these findings describe an association observed in study populations rather than a promise for any individual. There's a story that often comes up in discussions about berries and brain health, involving a group of nuns from a well-known aging study who lived remarkably long, sharp lives well into their 90s. Diet was only one factor researchers examined among many, including social engagement, physical activity, and a strong sense of purpose. But the nuns who consumed more fruits and vegetables, berries included, tended to show favorable patterns in later life cognitive testing. It is a reminder that no single food acts alone. Brain health appears to emerge from the accumulation of many small, consistent habits over an entire lifetime. Frozen berries retain most of their nutritional value and are often more affordable and convenient than fresh, making them an easy addition to oatmeal, yogurt, or a simple smoothie. One detail that surprises many viewers is that the benefits associated with berries in research do not appear to require large quantities. Several of the studies referenced by neurologists used relatively modest portions, often equivalent to about half a cup to a full cup consumed several times per week, rather than large daily amounts. This is encouraging for anyone concerned about cost or availability, since berries do not need to dominate the diet to potentially contribute to the overall pattern researchers have observed. It is also worth noting that berries are sometimes marketed with exaggerated claims, phrases like miracle fruit or superfood that promise dramatic results. Neurologists tend to caution against this kind of language, since no single fruit has been shown to reverse cognitive decline or prevent it entirely. The more accurate picture, according to most researchers in this field, is that berries appear to be one useful piece of a much larger nutritional puzzle. Number 5 is turmeric. Turmeric is the golden spice most commonly associated with curry dishes, and its active compound, curcumin, has become one of the most studied natural substances in nutritional science over the past 2 decades. Laboratory research suggests that curcumin may have anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties, and chronic, low-grade inflammation is a process that some researchers believe may be involved in age-related cognitive changes. It is important to note, however, that curcumin is poorly absorbed by the human body on its own, which is why many nutrition experts recommend pairing turmeric with black pepper, since a compound in black pepper called piperine may significantly increase curcumin absorption. Consider Harold, a 68-year-old retired mechanic who began adding turmeric to his scrambled eggs and soups after reading about it online. He was careful to mention this new habit to his physician during a routine visit, which is exactly the kind of conversation health professionals encourage, since turmeric supplements in concentrated doses can interact with certain blood-thinning medications. Whole food sources of turmeric used in cooking are generally considered a normal part of a varied diet, but anyone considering concentrated supplements should discuss this with a healthcare provider first. Researchers studying curcumin often note an interesting challenge in this area of science, that many of the most promising results have come from laboratory settings or animal studies, and translating those findings into confirmed benefits for human brain health has proven more difficult. This does not mean the compound is without value, but it is a useful reminder that early-stage research and confirmed medical benefit are two very different things. Reputable neurologists tend to describe turmeric as a promising area of ongoing research, rather than a proven treatment for any specific condition. For those who enjoy cooking, turmeric can be incorporated into rice dishes, soups, roasted vegetables, or a warm golden milk beverage made with a plant-based milk. A small amount of turmeric, black pepper, and a touch of cinnamon, offering an easy and enjoyable way to include this spice as part of a normal, varied diet. Number 6, extra virgin olive oil. At the center of the Mediterranean diet, a dietary pattern extensively studied for its association with heart and brain health, sits extra virgin olive oil. Unlike heavily processed vegetable oils, extra virgin olive oil retains polyphenols, natural plant compounds that appear to have antioxidant properties, along with monounsaturated fats that some research links to improved blood vessel function throughout the body, including the small vessels that supply the brain. A large-scale study known as the PRIDIME trial, conducted in Spain, found that participants following a Mediterranean-style diet enriched with extra virgin olive oil showed better cognitive test scores after several years compared to participants following a lower-fat diet. The researchers emphasized that this was observed within a specific, well-designed study population and encouraged caution before generalizing the findings to everyone, since individual results can vary based on genetics, activity level, and overall lifestyle. When selecting olive oil, nutrition experts often suggest looking for the words extra virgin on the label, since this indicates the oil was extracted without heat or chemical processing, which may help preserve more of its beneficial compounds. Storage matters here as well, something rarely discussed outside of specialized nutrition circles. Olive oil is sensitive to light and heat, and many researchers point out that oil stored in clear glass bottles on a sunny kitchen counter may lose some of its beneficial compounds more quickly than oil stored in a dark bottle in a cool cabinet. This is a small, practical detail that can make a real difference in preserving the quality of the product someone has already purchased. Cooking method is another consideration worth mentioning. While extra virgin olive oil can generally tolerate normal home cooking temperatures reasonably well, some nutrition professionals suggest reserving a portion for drizzling over finished dishes, such as a salad or a bowl of soup, since this preserves the oil in its least processed state and allows its flavor and nutritional profile to remain fully intact. Number 7. Eggs. Eggs have gone through several cycles of reputation over the decades, at times praised and at other times avoided due to concerns about dietary cholesterol. Current nutrition research has largely shifted this conversation, with many experts now viewing eggs as a valuable source of a nutrient called choline, found concentrated in the yolk. Choline is used by the body to produce a chemical messenger called acetylcholine, which plays a role in communication between brain cells and has been linked in research to memory and learning processes. Despite this, national dietary surveys have repeatedly found that a large percentage of adults do not consume adequate choline through their regular diet, in part because many people remove the yolk and eat only the egg white, unaware that most of the choline resides specifically in the yolk. This does not mean everyone needs to eat eggs daily, since individual dietary needs vary and should ideally be discussed with a healthcare provider or registered dietitian, particularly for anyone with specific cholesterol concerns. Choline is also connected to a broader nutritional story that many people have never heard. Pregnant women are frequently advised to pay close attention to choline intake because of its role in early brain development, and some researchers believe this same nutrient continues to matter throughout adulthood, supporting the ongoing maintenance of brain cell communication rather than only its initial formation. This lifelong relevance is part of why some neurologists mention eggs specifically, rather than simply recommending choline in general terms, since eggs remain one of the most concentrated and accessible dietary sources available in a typical grocery store. For those following a plant-based diet, other choline sources do exist, including soybeans, certain beans, and cruciferous vegetables, although the concentration found in these plant sources tends to be considerably lower than what is found in egg yolks, which is worth factoring into any broader conversation about dietary planning with a nutrition professional. Number 8. Dark leafy herbs and cruciferous vegetables. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cauliflower belong to a food family known as cruciferous vegetables, and they contain a compound called sulforaphane, which is released when these vegetables are chopped or chewed. Sulforaphane has become a subject of considerable interest in laboratory research, examining how the body's own antioxidant defense systems can be supported through diet, though much of this research remains in early stages, particularly regarding how these effects translate to long-term human brain health. What makes this category particularly interesting is preparation. Some research suggests that lightly steaming these vegetables, rather than boiling them for an extended time, may help preserve more of their beneficial compounds, since prolonged boiling can cause water-soluble nutrients to leach out into the cooking water. A quick steam of 3 to 5 minutes is a method often recommended by nutrition professionals for maximizing nutrient retention while still making the vegetables easier to digest than eating them completely raw. There is a story that illustrates how small preparation changes can shift a lifelong habit. Consider Alina, a 72-year-old grandmother from Michigan who had disliked broccoli since childhood, largely because it was always served to her overcooked and mushy at family dinners. After learning about the steaming method during a conversation with her granddaughter, who had studied nutrition in college, Alina tried preparing it differently and found she genuinely enjoyed the improved texture and flavor. She began incorporating lightly steamed broccoli and Brussels sprouts into her weekly meals, not out of obligation, but because she had simply discovered a version of the vegetable she actually liked. Chopping or chewing these vegetables thoroughly is also worth mentioning, since the enzyme responsible for releasing sulforaphane requires this physical disruption of the plant cells to become active, meaning that vegetables swallowed in very large, barely chewed pieces may not release the same amount of this compound compared to those that are chopped finely before cooking or chewed slowly and thoroughly. Number 9. Whole grains. Oats, quinoa, and brown rice belong to a category of carbohydrates that release glucose into the bloodstream more gradually compared to heavily refined grains such as white bread or white rice. The brain relies on a steady supply of glucose as its primary fuel source, and some researchers believe that dramatic spikes and crashes in blood sugar, which are more common with refined carbohydrates, may place additional strain on blood vessels throughout the body over time, including those that supply the brain. Consider Dorothy, a 74-year-old grandmother from Georgia who was encouraged by her physician to swap her usual white toast for steel-cut oats after a discussion about her blood sugar levels during a routine appointment. She has said that beyond any measurable health changes, she simply noticed feeling more steady and alert throughout her mornings, rather than experiencing the sluggish feeling she used to associate with her old breakfast routine. This kind of personal observation is valuable to the individual but should never replace formal medical guidance or testing, since blood sugar management is a complex, personalized area of health. Neurologists who discuss this topic sometimes point to the concept of the gut-brain connection, an area of research examining how the trillions of bacteria living in the digestive system may communicate with the brain in ways scientists are still working to fully understand. Whole grains contain fiber that serves as a food source for beneficial gut bacteria, and some researchers believe a healthy gut environment may play a supporting role in overall brain health. Though this remains a relatively young and evolving field of study, and much of the strongest evidence so far comes from animal research rather than large-scale human trials. For anyone looking to make this switch, nutrition professionals often suggest a gradual transition rather than an abrupt one, replacing white rice with brown rice a few times a week before moving to a full switch, since this allows the digestive system time to adjust to the increased fiber content without discomfort. Number 10. Dark chocolate. Here is the sign we mentioned earlier, the one many people overlook entirely, and it involves the last food on this list. Dark chocolate, specifically varieties containing 70% cocoa or higher, contains flavonoids similar to those found in berries, along with a modest amount of natural stimulants that some research associates with short-term improvements in alertness and blood flow to the brain. Several studies have examined cocoa flavonoids in relation to blood vessel function, and some researchers believe improved circulation throughout the body, including the brain's small blood vessels, may be one of the mechanisms behind the associations observed in this research. The overlooked sign involves portion and type. Many popular chocolate products contain very little actual cocoa and are instead composed primarily of sugar and milk solids, meaning they do not offer the same potential benefits studied in the research. And excessive sugar intake itself has been associated with negative effects on long-term metabolic and vascular health. Neurologists who discuss this topic often emphasize that the benefit, if present at all, appears tied specifically to high cocoa content chocolate consumed in moderate amounts, generally described in research as a small square or two, rather than an entire bar consumed daily. A 75-year-old retired postal worker named Frank began keeping a small piece of 78% dark chocolate in his desk drawer as an afternoon treat, replacing a sugary snack he used to reach for during a mid-afternoon slump. He has mentioned that beyond simply enjoying it, he liked knowing his small treat aligned with something his doctor had described in a positive light during a nutrition conversation. His experience, like the others mentioned in this video, is a personal anecdote and not a clinical outcome, and anyone with specific health conditions should check with a healthcare provider regarding chocolate or caffeine intake. It is worth adding that the cocoa content percentage listed on packaging is not always a perfect guide to flavonoid content, since processing methods can affect how many of these compounds survive from bean to bar. Some manufacturers use a process called Dutching, which involves treating cocoa with an alkalizing agent to reduce bitterness, and this process has been shown in some research to reduce flavonoid content compared to non-alkalized cocoa. For anyone specifically interested in maximizing potential benefit, looking for chocolate labeled as minimally processed or non-alkalized, in addition to a high cocoa percentage, is a detail some nutrition-conscious consumers choose to pay attention to. None of these 10 foods, taken alone, functions as a guaranteed solution for brain health, and no single meal or ingredient can promise protection against cognitive decline. What the research consistently points toward instead is a broader pattern, a way of eating built around fatty fish, leafy greens, walnuts, berries, turmeric, olive oil, eggs, cruciferous vegetables, whole grains, and modest amounts of dark chocolate, layered together consistently over months and years rather than adopted for a single week. It may also be worth remembering that diet is only one piece of a much larger picture. Neurologists consistently emphasize that regular physical activity, adequate sleep, ongoing social connection, ongoing mental engagement through reading, learning, or hobbies, and appropriate management of conditions such as high blood pressure and diabetes all appear to play significant roles alongside nutrition. No single video and no single food can capture the full complexity of how the human brain ages, and viewers are encouraged to view this information as one part of a much broader, ongoing conversation about long-term health, ideally guided by a trusted healthcare professional who understands their individual medical history. One statistic worth remembering from earlier in this video is the finding from the Rush University study, where older adults consuming leafy greens daily showed a notably slower rate of cognitive decline compared to those who rarely consumed them. A reminder that small, repeated choices may matter more than any single dramatic change. If you found this video helpful, we would love to know which of these 10 foods surprised you the most, or whether you already have a favorite brain-healthy recipe you would like to share in the comments below. If you think someone in your life, a parent, a grandparent, or even yourself could benefit from this information, feel free to share this video with them. And if you would like to see more educational content like this in the future, consider subscribing so you never miss an update. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.